Good morning and welcome to Good Shepherd and to 3-Minute Theology. My name is Brent Owens and I'm really glad that you decided to join us today. Today we are going to be discussing our increase of faith, hope, and charity. This was part of a collect or an assigned prayer that we had a couple of weeks ago. And in that prayer, I got to wondering, what would it look like if faith, hope, and charity were increased in each and every one of us, plus as a whole, as the Church of Christ, as the Episcopal Church? And so, taking that prayer seriously, last week I talked a little bit about how in our faith journey we may not know exactly how things are going to come out. And in fact, we might feel like we're walking through fog that's as thick as pea soup, and we really don't know what the next step is going to be. Well, in my experience in my faith journey, I've never stepped off a cliff yet. I've always had sure footing, and God has not abandoned us at all. And so I look now toward, how do we decide what our ministries are going to be? What are we called to do for God in the world around us? What is our calling? And how do we know how to move forward in that? Well, I looked to Proverbs, and in chapter 16, verse 3, it says, "Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established." And I know for a fact there's so many times when we are trying to discern our plans and trying to discern what ministry and work we're called to do, and we just don't know how it's going to work out, or even if it's what we ought to be doing. Well, as long as we are rooted in prayer and in Scripture, I think that we can move forward and God will establish our plans. So let me give you an example of that. A number of years ago, I was called to be the rector of a small church outside of Atlanta. It was a very small church, and we didn't have a whole lot of money, but we were very earnest in our Christian desire to be a witness in our neighborhood and in our area. And we received an email from the bishop and from the diocese, which asked for each church in the diocese to assign a creation keeper to try to look over how are we caring for creation through our church and in the neighborhood and in our towns. I threw it out to the congregation. I said, "Hey, would anybody like to be our creation keeper?" And somebody came forward, and several other people came forward to be part of that team. Well, it so happened that we also had an email from Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, which is a nonprofit that is a faith-based organization committed to decreasing the carbon footprint of churches and helping us to be good stewards of creation. Well, we reached out to them, and for an extraordinarily minimum amount of money, because we didn't have a whole lot to spend, they sent an engineer to us who spent more than a half a day at our church looking over the entire facility and how we used it in order to help us to determine the best ways to save money. We had to provide multiple years' worth of our electric bills and how we used our spaces, and we received back a report which gave us 3 areas that we can improve in. Those areas where it would cost us no money at all to save energy and to decrease our carbon footprint. The next area saves money and decreased our carbon footprint, but only cost a little bit to do. And then the last area were the more big ticket items like new HVAC system in a part of the church that had this ancient system that was very, very inefficient. And then another area of the church that had no insulation, and we didn't even realize that. So over the next several years, the creation keeper and his team worked at knocking off every single item on the list. And by the time it was all done and said, we discovered that we were saving thousands of dollars a year on our energy bills, and we had significantly decreased our carbon footprint. Now, it wasn't necessarily easy to do, and we didn't exactly have the money for the big ticket items, but we wrote grants and got grants for some of those and to help pay for them. We did things like moving my office to an area of the church where the air and the heat would be on anyways, so we didn't have to trigger another system. That didn't cost us any money, but it saved energy. And then another area where we had several water coolers, and we didn't need cold water at 3 in the morning. So we bought some timers, plugged them in, And the timers were only maybe $20, but we could have cold water only during business hours. When we started off with the Creation Keeper and his team, we really didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't know how we would do it. But we were firm in Proverbs 16, Lord, and we committed our work to reducing our carbon footprint to God. And God helped us to establish those plans. So I commend that to you as a way that our faith increases when we commit our work to the Lord. And I leave you with this blessing. The blessing of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be upon you and remain with you forever. Amen.